Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and in this video we are taking a look at the Tanchjim Kara 5-driver in-ear monitors that go for $179 US. Now, I think Tanchjim is how you pronounce that name. If it's not, please forgive me. It's what I'm going to run with here in this video. This set here was loaned to me from Apos Audio. Apos Audio has asked nothing in return other than a fair and honest evaluation of this product. The link in the description down below where you can buy these from Apos will be an affiliate link. If you like what I say about them and you want to help support the channel, please consider using that affiliate link and I will get a few bucks back. And honestly, all of that affiliate link money that I have earned so far goes right back into the channel so that I can continue to bring you cool content like this. All right, I will just go ahead and let the cat out of the bag here. I enjoyed the Kara quite a bit, and so I'm going to use this video to explain why, and we'll jump right into an overhead view where I can show you the build and all of that here right after shameless self-promotion.
Hi, I'm Wave Theory's human companion, and he wants you to know that your support of this YouTube channel helps keep the reviews coming. If you enjoy Wave Theory's honest, thorough style, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the links in the description below to sign up for the Patreon or send him a tip through PayPal. All right, enjoy the musings.
Tanchjim Kara. We'll jump right to the overhead view here so I can show you the box, the packaging, the build of the IEM because IEMs are tiny. This is easier to see them. And yeah, let's talk about what your $180 US gets you when you exchange them for a Tanchjim Kara. All right, so there is the frequency response graph. I know that IEM users like to see that almost more than some headphone users. So there you go. Pretty close to a Harman target kind of curve going on here. A little bit of raggedness up here. Does affect the sound a little bit. You can hear some of this. I'll explain a little bit more in the sound section here. Let's see, specs. Let's talk about that. We have a hybrid unit here. You have a 9mm dynamic driver in there for low-end stuff. And then there are 4 balanced armature drivers to handle the rest of the frequency spectrum. And you see right here, the frequency division is there's a low pass, a band pass, a high pass, a 3-way frequency division from there. All right. Other things that we see in there that are important are a 27 ohm impedance with a rated 115 decibel per volt RMS sensitivity at 1 kilohertz. They are not particularly hard to drive, but at 27 ohms, they are also not super sensitive to the point where they're going to pick up a lot of system noise or hiss or, you know, background noise, that sonic background kinds of things, like super sensitive models like Andromeda's can, or like what was the one, the Fur M5, the one I reviewed, that one, it was like a 6 ohm or something like that impedance, and you could hear the noise floor a lot. Okay, nice packaging here, and you can see I'm already struggling a little bit to get this cardboard sleeve off. It has a bit of a suction on it, okay, to get that on and off of there. Kind of weird looking, like, angel symbol going on there, right? And then the top of the lid here just slides right off. Okay, you get documentation, user manual, that sort of thing in here. Okay, documents and such. Okay, in there. All right. Fairly standard fare. Stay in there. Okay, then this part lifts off, and then here we go. We have the cool stuff. The IEMs themselves are in this, I mean, they're sitting right here. It's one of those things, you pull that out, pop that out there underneath this foam. Yeah, that's mostly foam covered in cardboard. Underneath there we see different ear tips. These are the APB silicone ear tips, TAPB silicone ear tips in there. A nice little carrying case. The stock cable is in here. Okay, and almost like carpet almost inside of there. Okay, then like all of this is fixed in. These come out, but the rest of this is all fixed in place, so there's nothing underneath there. So that is the box and the packaging. This carrying case is a little bit on the bigger, bulkier side than, and it's got a button on it instead of a magnet or something like that. Actually, that did feel magnetic. Never mind. It's a magnet in the shape of a button. Okay, in there. I really didn't use it because it's just a little bit on the big side. All that. So let's move this stuff out of the way, and then we'll talk about the IEM and the cable. Okay, we have a 2-pin cabling system here. This is the stock cable here where we get 3.5 millimeter single-ended TRS on the amp end, and then it's, you know, got this, I don't know if it's actually silver in there, but it's definitely a silver colored, or at least silver coated wire through a clear plastic insulating material there. And okay, it's got that there at the fork, and then it has this nice little metal sliding thing on there, and then a pretty tight curl on these around ear shepherd hook like things. And then we see fairly long prong 2-pin connection right there. All right, here is the IEM itself, and it's very light. I'm going to tell you that right up front, but it's also see-through. Like, you look in there and you can see some of the balanced armatures and all of those kinds of connections in there. And then digits 2314. I'm not quite sure what that means. Okay, but looking further through this clear plastic shell, you see the dynamic driver in there. And then we got this the balanced armatures in there. Looks pretty cool. And you have like the tubes going down through the nozzle, all of that. Again, it's plastic, but it's still well made. It is very light. Okay, and the see-through is cool to see everything that is going on in there. And then slide that off. This is what the nozzle looks like. It looks bigger and more intimidating than it actually is, because with this ear tip, and these were the ear tips that were just on the earphones when they arrived to me, these TAPB silicones. This is the small size, I believe, or whatever size it is. This and this has never really happened for me before with an IEM. These just fit really well right out of the box with these tips. They went in my ear comfortably. They stayed in pretty well. And so I just ran with them. That has almost never happened. I can't think of another IEM where that happened, where just whatever tips were on it stuck in my ears and just stuck with it. That was pretty impressive. But yeah, and again, the lightness of these, it's kind of hard to put into words. Just like, these are incredibly light. They are among the lightest IEMs I have ever had come through here. And so that aids in their comfort and all of that. They would slowly work themselves out of my ear if I was at the gym or something like that. Just stick them back in there, push them in a little bit, and they're fine. But I didn't really have any long-term comfort issues or anything like that. So well done there. So that's the build and the specs and the features of the IEM and all of that. Let's go back to me on camera to talk about test gear and sound. As we transition to sound, let's talk about the test gear that I used to evaluate these IEMs here. And again, I used the stock tips that came right out of there. And to drive them most of the time, a lot of the listening that I did with these was I used them at the gym, where I often use IEMs. And I used a Radsound Ear Studio 100 little mobile Bluetooth DAC amp in there, connected to my Samsung S22 Plus smartphone, which is doing the video work for me here. That would have been a lot of Spotify via LDAC, which is not the best evaluative tool, but in terms of just getting a feel for the flavor of these and what they're like, it does a good job with that. For more critical listening, I bounced back and forth between my KN-N6 Mark II DAP with the EO2 module and using my Cord Hugo 2 transportable DAC amp, which was fed by its matching 2Go streamer. And a review for the 2Go streamer is in the works. I am hopefully going to get to that in the not too distant future. All right. As far as files that were played, I mentioned Spotify. I have that set to the 320 kilobit of OGG Vorbis format there. And then for the KN in the cord gear, that would have been for the KN, it would have been local files played right off of an internal micro SD card using USB Audio Player Pro app, and those would have been either DSD files or lossless or high-res FLAC files. Likewise, with the Hugo 2, it was either local DSD files or local high-res or FLAC files, or streamed Qobuz lossless or high-res FLAC files, mostly through Roon, using the 2Go as a Roon endpoint. Okay. I should also mention that while I did check the stock cable here for how it sounded, it was fine, and just a little bit generally how it was used. It has a little bit of memory to it. It's not bad. I did prefer using my Triple Win. I think it's an 8-core, 4.4 millimeter Pentacon cable, and that fit here. The 2-pin version fit these just fine, and that's what I used for most of my listening with the Kara. All right, so sound. I like it. This I just right out of the gate here on the Sonic description. This is one of those where I am like very tempted to tell Apos you just can't have them back, and to just beg them to let me keep them, because I have really liked using them. They are among the more comfortable IEMs I have used. They fit my ears well, which is kind of a rarity with IEMs, especially with these stock tips. Just for that combination to work right out of the box for me the way it did is, yes, mostly luck, but I have not had that experience before. Okay, but so there's that. Take that for what it's worth. Everything that I'm about to talk about and say why I like the sound so much should also be taken with the grain of salt of that these are a $180 US product, so they are not giant killers. They are not going to punch way above their price point. So when I say they have, let's say, excellent bass dynamics and impact, which they do, I don't mean that they are way out and ahead of far more expensive items. I just mean that here at this price point, they do a really good job. Okay, so with that out of the way, they remind me a lot of the final A5000. I reviewed those not long ago, so I'll put a link down in the description to those. And I really liked the combination of resolution, timbre, tuning, dynamics, sound staging, and all of that from the A5000. And it is a very, very similar story here with the Kara. As soon as I plugged them in and put them in for the first time and started playing music, I was like, oh, that's nice. And then I was like, oh, wow, they remind me a lot of the A5000. Unfortunately, I did not have them right here side by side to do a lot of direct A/B comparison. But the overall sonic characters are very similar. I think the A5000 is likely a little bit more resolving and a little bit more holographic in its spatial presentation, but I don't think those gaps are going to be huge. Okay, so then what do I mean when I say it sounds like the A5000 if you have not heard the A5000 here? So let's start with the tuning. It is a mostly neutral tuning with a bit of a sub-bass shelf going on. There is a bit of added, I think, above neutral sub-bass rumble and presence going on here. And then that sub-bass also has a lot of impact and slam to it through the sub-bass and punch through the mid-bass. Okay, but it also does a really good job of not bleeding that mid-bass into, or that bass into the lower mids and all of that. Like there's no kind of bloat or excess chestiness or anything like that going on in the sound there. Okay, the tonal balance through the mids is quite strong too. Like my ears are sensitive to things like shout and honk, and I really did not detect that through here. I thought that the mid-range in its entirety matched the presence levels of the treble in particular, and was maybe not quite as thick as the sub-bass or as present as the sub-bass, but was not far behind. And then the tonal balance through the mid-range I thought was really good. The relationship between fundamental frequencies and overtones and harmonics and all of that were pretty appropriate, I would say. So vocals and all of that usually had pretty good tonal balance to them. Now the treble is the one area where the tonal balance can get a little bit raggedy, but it's not terrible. There is a little bit of a metallic shimmer going on up top with some crash cymbals and that sort of thing. It may bother some. It really didn't bother me a whole lot, but it is there and is a thing to be aware of. But other than that, the general treble presence is like it's got a healthy amount of sparkle to it without being overly forward, and I really didn't detect much in the way of sibilance or sharpness very often unless it was already in the recording. Okay, now the resolution, pretty solid. I was routinely impressed with particularly how well it resolved like the finger actions of electric bass guitars. Like when a finger plucks a bass guitar string, there is the tone that sets up from the vibrating string and then its harmonics that come with it. But then there's also the sound of like the fingertips scraping across that string. And you can hear that come through in a lot of recordings, and you can hear that come through pretty well on here. So that was pretty impressive from a resolution standpoint. And that's just one example. There are other things like room reverbs are pretty sharp, pretty clear. I shouldn't say sharp, but they're pretty crisp, pretty clear. Okay, ghost notes are resolved well. Like if you like live recordings, audience noise is resolved pretty well and naturally and that sort of thing too. And then I also liked the detail presentation. It was not pushed towards me. It was not overly recessed. It was just kind of right there, kind of a natural presentation to my ear. The soundstage is pretty big. Okay, it's not enormous, it's not cavernous, but it's got some decent size to it. And then particularly laterally, there's pretty good imaging with reasonably good separation going on. It is not truly holographic, it is not truly three-dimensional. It being $180 IEM is where those things kind of come into play, I think. But for the price, its ability to throw a big stage and then place things within that stage is pretty solid. Right, the dynamics, the impact, like it has a fun and lively kind of physicality to the sound. So kick drums in particular will hit really low bass tones, rumble a lot, but then there's also pretty good snap to snare drums and that sort of thing. So that's all pretty good and enjoyable to my ear too. Now, the one area where it might fall off a little bit is the timbre. The timbre is okay. I mentioned that the slight shimmeriness and metallic-y nature of the treble timbre a little bit ago. I think that will be the biggest complaint of the timbre hawks out there. It didn't bother me a whole lot, but it was detectable, right? Some of that does throw off, like there are a lot of mid-range sounds, like voices and like instruments that are heavily mid-range present, like pianos and guitars, like particularly acoustic guitars and flutes, violins, all that kind of stuff, will have some harmonic content up in the treble range, and so that gets thrown off just enough because of the treble response of these that they can sound a little bit unnatural. So because of that, I tended to prefer these for like rock, metal, and various subgenres in terms of music, because there's a lot more like distorted electric guitars and like that sort of thing going on there than other genres like classical or jazz, where there are a lot of acoustic instruments, and having a very natural timbre really aids in the listening experience, at least to my ear, more than like say rock or metal or hip hop or those sorts of things. So I think I said in my A5000 review, like the subtitle was "For Those About to Rock." Okay, a little riff on AC/DC there. Like similar here, I think these are really good rock, metal, hip hop, EDM kinds of IEMs. But the timbre is off just enough that I think those who are primarily like acoustic and timbral listeners, those who are into classical, jazz, folk music, like that, those sorts of things, the timbre might be off just enough that it bothers them more than the other considerable strengths outweigh that aspect with rock and metal, for me at least. Okay. So that's where I will leave that here on these alone. Quick comparisons. I mean, I mentioned the A5000 in there. I think the A5000, these are so similar to that. It's really eerie how similar they are. Just maybe not quite as resolving, and maybe not quite as accurate in their timbre, and maybe not quite as accurate in their imaging and their separation, their spatial stuff. Probably, but again, not far behind on any of those either. Okay, some of the other IEMs in here that I've heard, the one around $180 would be, I think it was the Moondrop Kato. I think is the one that's right around there. If that's the wrong name, I'm sorry. That's what I'm thinking of. The one with the interchangeable nozzles. Okay, I think is right around $180, $190. Okay, and that one was solid. It was solid across the board, probably a little bit better for acoustic-oriented music if that's what you're into, but they did not engage me the way the Karas have, particularly with rock and metal. I thought they were solid, they were overall strong, but they did not engage me or really like connect me to hard rock, metal, classic rock, you know, those kinds of things, which are the meat and potatoes of my listening, okay, in the way that these did. So there's at least one more comparison for you there. Most of the IEMs that I have heard from there are either significantly cheaper or significantly more expensive. And I think, I mean, again, these aren't going to like reach up and grab much more expensive items or IEMs out there. Like they're not going to be giant slayers, but just for what they are, for the price and the combination of performance, I think with genres where acoustic accuracy, acoustic timbral accuracy is not the most important thing, which to me would be rock, metal, EDM, hip-hop kinds of things. These are just really amazing, and I really strongly recommend them if you are into those kinds of music and you are looking for an IEM. All right, so I will leave it there. I'm Wave Theory. This has been my review of the Tanchjim Kara IEM. Please like this video if you have not yet. Leave a comment down below. Check out my PayPal and my Patreon to see how you can support the channel in that way. And if you haven't subscribed, I mean, do that. All right. Thanks again for watching and enjoy the music.